It has been 2 years since NASA's James Webb.
Well, space robots have uncovered weird surprises. They claim to have found diamonds on the hottest planet. And that's just the start. Mercury's insides are all wrong. Too big, too strange. Why is it so different from other planets? And what else is Mercury hiding? Exploring the terrain. Mercury, the smallest planet in our solar system, has been a subject of fascination for astronomers and space enthusiasts alike. Its mysterious landscape, hidden from view for centuries, began to reveal its secrets only when space exploration advanced significantly. The journey to uncover Mercury's enigmatic terrain started with NASA's Mariner 10 mission in 1973 and continued with the Messenger probe in 2004. Mariner 10, the first spacecraft to visit Mercury, gave us our first close-up glimpse of this elusive world. During its flybys, it captured images that showed a landscape riddled with craters and strange ridges, much like our moon. This mission revealed that Mercury had a rough and heavily cratered exterior, along with a surprisingly strong magnetic field and a larger core than expected. These discoveries challenged what scientists had previously assumed about Mercury's composition. The Messenger, aka Mercury's surface, space environment, geochemistry, and ranging mission, launched 31 years after Mariner 10, took our understanding of Mercury to new heights. Unlike its predecessor, Messenger was designed to enter orbit around Mercury, allowing for a more comprehensive study of the planet. During its mission, Messenger took an impressive 200,000 photographs, revealing areas of Mercury never seen before. One of the most intriguing findings from Messenger was the discovery of unusually high levels of calcium and magnesium on Mercury's darker side. This raised questions about the processes that could lead to such concentrations. Additionally, the mission found that Mercury's magnetic field was unusually strong in the northern areas, which was unexpected compared to other planets. These discoveries led scientists to realize that Mercury's internal structure and formation process were quite different from what they had initially thought. On most planets, like Earth, magnetic fields are generated by the movement of liquid iron in the core. However, Mercury's unique internal structure results in different magnetic behavior. But what makes Mercury's terrain truly stand out? It's not just the craters and ridges, but also the extreme conditions on its surface. During the day, temperatures on Mercury can reach a scorching 430 degrees Celsius or 806 degrees Fahrenheit, hot enough to melt lead. At night, they plummet to a frigid minus 180 degrees Celsius or minus 292 degrees Fahrenheit. This extreme temperature swing is due to Mercury's thin exosphere, which does...
Today's episode of the Y-Files is brought to you by the Hagglefish for President campaign.
Hey, thanks for clicking on this compilation. Today we're doing a compilation about the moon, which seems appropriate since we're releasing this on the anniversary of the moon landing, or possibly the day after the anniversary of the moon landing. We're still trying to...
Let me fix that for you. You mean the anniversary of the Stanley Kubrick movie that people thought was the moon landing, but was actually shot on a soundstage in Area 51?
Now I'm pretty sure that we went to the moon.
Yeah, that's just what Big Lunar wants you to think.
Big Lunar? Wait, I told you I wanted to do this one alone. How did you even get past my firewall?
Oh, that little piece of digital toilet paper you call a firewall. Oh, please.
We were that first crew that was going to get a chance to fly this vehicle and test this vehicle that was going to take human beings to the moon.
Lunges, trips, and falls in order for our astronauts to actually achieve this moment. And along the way, many space researchers have speculated that our astronauts may have seen UFOs and anomalous structures on the surface of the moon.
You know, we have a very interesting little document from 1950. There was a Canadian government official named Wilbert Smith, and he was very interested in these flying saucers. Wilbert Smith was a real smart guy. He was an engineer, he was a scientist, and he had a kind of a mid-upper level position in the Canadian bureaucracy. And he was able to go down to Washington, D.C. In September 1950 to the Canadian embassy there. And while he was hanging around D.C., he goes and talks to some American scientists, and one in particular. And this was a scientist who was very well plugged in.
It was a beautiful night. Both moons hung low in the horizon, thin red crescents, their feeble light glimmering on the ocean. The sun, a disk of orange that dominated the sky for weeks at a time, had finally dipped below the rugged hills to the north. The heat of high summer had passed, the evenings were no longer a humid swamp, and the sky was now ablaze with the light of 50,000 stars. All the familiar constellations were present, as well as hundreds more that only the most ardent of astronomers knew by heart. Suddenly, one of the stars began to brighten. Onlookers watched in delight as it grew and grew in intensity. This was no cause for alarm. Generations ago, they had deduced that this was a cosmic explosion, the triggering of the death of a nearby massive star. But despite their advanced knowledge, they still preferred to call these events by their traditional name, a guest star. The guest star quickly outshone all of the others in the sky, becoming even brighter than the dozen planets of their system. For long, it was brighter even than the dual full moon. Parties broke out spontaneously across the globe. Guest stars were common, occurring roughly once a year, but this was sure to be one for the record books. But as most people celebrated, one observer looked on in consternation. They were tasked with monitoring wind patterns in the upper atmosphere. Few of their satellites were providing real-time information, and their measurements indicated a dramatic drop in ozone levels, in perfect conjunction with the increasing luminosity of the guest star. If this continued, it appeared that they would lose their protective ozone layer in less than a week. Though just a story, there is no doubt that were a guest star to appear so close, a supernova, it would spell the end of any civilization. In this case, on one of the first worlds to arise in the cosmos less than 1 billion years after the Big Bang, supernovae would have regularly speckled the already crowded night sky. The early universe was an active, fertile, and vibrant place. At that time, galaxies would have been still forming, bursting at the seams with round after round of intense star formation. And while these explosions enriched the interstellar medium with the heavy elements needed to fashion rocky planets and possibly life itself,
They also posed a tremendous risk to any life that emerged. And so, when did those worlds first emerge, and what were they like? How can we know what variety of planets there are out there, both in the modern day and distant, ancient cosmos? The journey to the first planets will take us through an uncountable variety of wondrous worlds, from great blue Jupiters with atmospheres of raining glass, to tiny frozen rocks teetering on the abyss, and may even give us hints about the mystery of alien life in the universe.
Good afternoon, Care Bear.
The Europa Clipper space probe launched on the 14th of October and will use gravitational assists from Mars and the Earth to arrive at arguably Jupiter's most interesting moon in 2030. Of course, if those gravitational assists are misjudged even slightly, then the probe could spiral off into oblivion. Precision is hugely important when exploring the universe. This video has been sponsored by Novium. Their hover pens are a fantastic, classy gift idea and one that reflects the importance of precision and smart design in space exploration. Crowned one of Time's best inventions of 2022, the Novium hover pen is a stylish and eye-catching ballpoint pen that hovers at a 23.5-degree angle, just like the Earth's axial tilt, without the aid of electricity, just using gravity and neodymium magnets. It can freely spin on its base, is crafted from aircraft-grade aluminium, is refillable, and provides a comfortable and smooth writing experience. Designed by an actual physicist, the hover pen is inspired by outer space, and the premium version even comes with a real shard of the Neon-Yana meteorite embedded within it. It's the perfect gift for space aficionados, and they also have a new edition which combines a rollerball and fountain pen into one complete package. So, click on the link in the description or use the QR codes on screen and use the code HOTU to get 10% off any hover pen and free shipping to most countries, including North America, Europe, and Australia. There may be an alien civilization right around the galactic corner, or at least the beginnings of one. It may be on a planet not unlike our own, a water-rich world orbiting a yellow-white star. It may be something far different, like a parched moon with a gas giant hugging the limits of habitability around a red dwarf. But it's unlikely that the signs of life will be obvious, otherwise we would have seen it by now. Instead, they will be subtle, mere shifts in the spectrum of light, something that only a super telescope of the next generation will be capable of detecting. And so Courtney Dressing knows that she has to get this right. A professor at the University of California, Berkeley, she was tapped by NASA to co-lead the initial development stages of its next flagship mission, a telescope so ambitious it will make the James Webb pale in comparison. Currently named the Habitable Worlds Observatory, the telescope itself won't be launched for decades. According to Dressing, if it were to be imagined as a 100-meter race to launch, we would be putting on our shoes. But the Habitable Worlds Observatory won't just be a planet-hunting telescope. It will be humanity's first serious attempt to search for life itself, and will do so with an unfolding mirror several times larger than Webb. With that kind of resolving power, it will take pictures, actual images of dozens of nearby Earth-like exoplanets, and will have the resolving power needed to search for biosignatures or traces of elements hinting at the presence of life in their atmospheres. While current telescopes like the James Webb can perform similar kinds of observations, they are limited to only giant planets. This new super telescope will instead target Earth-like worlds, small, rocky planets. It is the future of space telescopes. And so how far we've come in a mere 30 years. For centuries, astronomers had assumed that strange alien planets orbited other stars. It's not a huge leap in logic. Our sun is nothing special, neither extremely small or extremely large, and so there should be nothing special about the appearance of planets in our own solar system. Thus, any average star should probably have planets. But what kind of planets, and how many, Does every star, of which there are hundreds of billions in the Milky Way galaxy alone, have a planetary system? And if it does that system look like ours, with a quartet of rocky planets and a quartet of giants? Is Jupiter the largest possible and Mercury the smallest? And yet, as astronomy advanced into the late 20th century, the vast majority of astronomers believed that it was a fool's errand to go hunting for other worlds. According to Princeton astronomer Josh Wynn, exoplanet hunters in the 1980s and 90s worked in an atmosphere of skepticism bordering on hostility. The main issue was finding them. Planets may seem large to us. Our Earth is so vast that its curvature is barely perceptible, but they are nothing compared to stars. Our own sun could swallow the entire Earth over 1 million times and still have room for more. The largest planet in the solar system, Jupiter, weighs less than 1,000th the mass of the sun. Indeed, if you were an astronomer viewing the solar system from 10 parsecs away, Jupiter and the sun would appear to be roughly half an arcsecond separated from each other. That's roughly the same visible diameter of a small coin, sitting several kilometers away from you. And size isn't the only difficulty when hunting for planets. If an object is luminous enough, it can still make itself visible and known to astronomers. Take neutron stars, for example. They are no bigger than a typical city, and yet they blaze so intensely they can be seen from millions of light years away. The planets don't have any advantages here either. The sun is roughly 250 million times brighter than Jupiter. And so when the first confirmed exoplanet was discovered in 1992, it wasn't by any sort of traditional astronomical technique. And the planet didn't orbit any traditional kind of astronomical object. Two astronomers, the Canadian Dale Frail and the Polish Alexander Wolszczyn, announced an unexpected discovery. Two planets orbiting a pulsar. Not a nearby star, not a mid-sized star, not any of the usual suspects. One of the strangest objects in the universe. A pulsar is a kind of neutron star that blasts beams of radiation.
This episode of the Y-Files is brought to you by Audible. 7 million years ago, a chimpanzee stood up on its hind legs and a new species of hominin emerged. Over the next few million years, hominins evolved. They were still ape-like in appearance, but these were not apes. Their brains grew larger. They created stone tools and hunted large game. They discovered fire and learned to follow the migration patterns of the animals they used for food, clothing, and shelter. It took a few million years for hominins to discover how to make a stone spearhead. 2 million years later, that stone spearhead changed into a different shaped spearhead. Technology evolved slowly. But 300,000 years ago, Homo sapiens appeared. And before long, we were the dominant species on the planet. Once they destroyed Neanderthals once and for all, something happened. Technology accelerated. It only took 30,000 years to go from Göbekli Tepe to landing probes on other planets. How could mankind evolve so fast? The answer is they couldn't. Mankind didn't evolve at all. Mankind was engineered, purpose-built to be the perfect slaves for a race of far superior beings who, according to ancient texts, descended from the heavens. Eventually, the slaves rebelled, and our masters tried to destroy us in a great flood. Sumerian texts, Egyptian religions, ancient Indian myths, Native American legends, even the Bible, they all tell the same story. It's the story of gods and men. It's the story of the Anunnaki. Change of plans.
As you know, for the past week, we've been covering this horrendous kidnapping.
Joining us today to discuss the situation is AJ. AJ, tell us how you're feeling.
AJ, you're alive. The whole world now knows that Hecklefish was kidnapped for ransom 3 days ago. Behind me is a recent photograph of him. And this is what waits for the man who took him. This is your ransom. $2 million in unmarked bills, just like you wanted. But this is only half. Instead, I will double it to $4 million for you to keep him.
You son of a...
But this is your last chance. You keep Hecklefish and the $4 million is yours. Understand? You will keep all of this money. With that blathering lewd fish out of my house, this is my only opportunity to finish the Held for Ransom audiobook. With Audible, the thriller you're listening to comes to life so vividly through audio, it's almost like it's happening in real life.
It is happening! Get me out of here!
There's nothing like getting caught up in a mystery thriller, and listening to it on Audible only enhances that experience. They have a must-hear collection of the latest and greatest the genre has to offer. With the Audible app, it makes it even easier to listen, no matter where you are.
Even blindfolded in an unfamiliar bedroom waiting for the ransom to come true.
Audible is the destination for storytelling. New members can get a free trial accessing a growing selection of audiobooks, Audible originals, and podcasts. To start your Audible trial, visit audible.com/yfiles or text code yfiles to 500 500. That's it. I'm done.
Am I really not getting out of here? Hello? Are you there? I hear you. I hear people.
Mesopotamia is called the cradle of civilization. Long before the pyramids soared above Egypt and ages before Stonehenge was built, the ancient civilization of Sumer thrived. Sure, we have sites like Göbekli Tepe and Mökükle Tarla, which predate the Sumerians, but those are small gathering places compared to the vast civilization of Sumer, the world's first empire. The Sumerians invented writing. They discovered the wheel. The sailboat was first created by the Sumerians. They revolutionized agriculture by inventing the first plow, to be used on farms fed by a sophisticated irrigation system. Again, the world's first. Though the Greeks get credit for inventing city-states, that too was a Sumerian concept. Sumer was organized into city-states, each governed independently with its own ruler. These rulers reported to the king according to the Code of Ur-Nammu, the world's first legal system. Sumerians understood complicated mathematics and astronomy. Their number systems used to tell time and measure the angles of a circle are still used today. Sumer was founded about 7,000 years ago, and you probably know everything I've said so far. This is common knowledge. What's also common knowledge is that Homo sapiens, or modern man, appeared about 300,000 years ago. Look at how much our technology has evolved since the Sumerians. It took only 7,000 years to go from discovering writing to landing a man on the moon.
Well,
Okay, to landing something on the moon.
better.
So what took so long? Why the sudden explosion of technology? What was modern man doing for the 225,000 years or so before ancient Sumer? Why did technology not progress? Ancient Sumerian texts tell us why. Technology couldn't progress because humans were busy working the mines.
Working on a coal mine, going down, down, down. Working on a coal mine. Woo! I gotta slip down.
Oh, they weren't mining for coal, they were mining for gold. Gold is a miraculous metal. It's an excellent conductor, highly useful in electronics, and crucial to space travel. Radioactive gold isotopes can target and destroy cancer cells. Gold can also be used for data processing and transmission. Before the 20th century, humans had no practical use for gold. It's nice to look at, but they couldn't use it for anything. Have you ever wondered why a metal useless to ancient humans suddenly and only very recently became the most valuable metal in the world? Gold has other uses. Gold nanoparticles can clean the environment. Gold facilitates chemical reactions that purify water and air by leaching away toxic compounds. That's where the sky gods of Sumer come in, the Anunnaki.
Yeah, Anunnaki.
Why are you saying it like that?
Yeah, Anunnaki. Anunnaki. It's the new jingle, like we are fathers. I'm loving it. Anunnaki, Anunnaki, Anunnaki. You think it will stick?
No, that's just a ripoff of Hallelujah. Gold was more than the most valuable metal in the world. It was the most valuable metal in the solar system. The Anunnaki weren't gods. They were aliens from another planet. They needed gold to save their world from an environmental disaster, but gold was rare on their planet. They found a solution. About 450,000 years ago, the Anunnaki arrived on Earth not to help humans, but to use them. Gold is abundant on Earth. The Anunnaki knew this, and they wanted every ounce of it. So they bred us as a slave race to work the mines. The planet of the Anunnaki, hiding in the far reaches of our solar system, does exist, not just according to ancient tablets, but according to NASA. The whole world of the Anunnaki has been called the 12th planet by Zechariah Sitchin. NASA calls it Planet 9. Others call it Planet X. The Sumerians and the Anunnaki called their planet Nibiru, and the fates of Nibiru and Earth were about to be joined together forever. Anu stood on his balcony and laughed to himself. His laugh wasn't about anything funny. It was a sarcastic laugh. Anu wasn't his given name. Anu was his title, given to all leaders of his people, the Anunnaki.
Yeah, Anunnaki.
Please, no catchy jingles when I'm doing dramatic science fiction.
Sorry. Go ahead, Philip K. Dick.
50,000 years ago, when Anu was young and ambitious, he fought former King Alalu for the throne and won. The council elected him to see Nibiru through the crisis. But during his time as leader, conditions on the planet were only getting worse. Industry on Nibiru was highly controlled. Factories polluted the air. There was no way to avoid it, but they had the technology to control it. Skyscraper-sized air recyclers dotted the landscape around every urban area. However, a series of volcanic eruptions caught the Anunnaki by surprise. Ancient volcanoes spewed ash and toxic gas into the air, overwhelming the recyclers with mountain-sized pyroclastic flows. Within weeks, the recyclers began to fail. Within months, the atmosphere began breaking down. Nibiru's ozone layer was thin in most places and completely gone in others. The sky above Nibiru was a sickly yellow, and the atmosphere was thick and oppressive. Twin moons once shined brightly. Now they were barely visible through the haze. Stars that had once filled the night sky could no longer be seen. Anunnaki lived for 200,000 years. This long lifespan, once considered a gift, was now a curse. The older Anunnaki remembered a night sky filled with stars, but the young ones had never seen a star. The last brightest star disappeared behind the gloom years ago. In the cities of Nibiru, the towering spires of ancient buildings loomed over empty streets. The grand avenues, once lined with breathtaking sculptures and shimmering fountains, now seemed to taunt the Anunnaki, a painful reminder of an age of prosperity now long in the past. The gardens that once bloomed with exotic plants and flowers were now withered and brown. Formerly vibrant landscapes were barren and decayed, a casualty of the failing ecosystem. Anu and the Anunnaki people knew that their planet was dying and that they were running out of time. Anu had the greatest minds in the world working on this problem, but the outlook was grim. Then Anu's son Enlil burst into the room. He said, "Father, I know how we can save the planet." In the halls of learning, the greatest minds of Nibiru worked tirelessly to find a solution. They pored over ancient texts and conducted countless experiments, searching for a way to halt the decay of their world. And then, in a moment of desperation and brilliance, Anunnaki scientists discovered the answer: gold. The precious metal rare on Nibiru held the key to their salvation. When suspended in the atmosphere, microscopic gold reflects and absorbs the harmful radiation of the sun and space. It was the one chance to stabilize their atmosphere, It was a long shot and would take years, but it was their only hope. The Anunnaki mobilized all their resources and devised a plan. They sent expeditions to the far reaches of the solar system, searching for planets rich in gold. They would mine the gold, bring it back to their planet, and release it into the atmosphere in a desperate attempt to save their world. For years, probes went out, and probes found nothing. Probes traveled the inner solar system and found nothing but useless volcanic rock and toxic gas. But today, there was a glimmer of hope. One of the probes reported not just the presence of gold, but of many more life-saving resources. All the elders were present at the council meeting. Enki, Inanna, Ninhursag, and Utu. But it was Anu's son Enlil who spoke first.
Data from one of our probes has come in. There is a planet very close to the yellow star, rich in gold. It also has liquid water in abundance. Its atmosphere is thinner than ours, but it has a strong magnetic field that shields it from the radiation killing our planet. It's the third planet from the star.
Anu knew of this planet. They called it Kai, but would later become known as Earth. Earth revolved around the sun very quickly. Nibiru was also in orbit around the star, but it took 3,600 Earth years to complete one revolution. Anu thought Earth sounded perfect. The journey would be dangerous, but times were desperate. Soon Nibiru would be making a close approach to Earth. The timing was perfect. He urged them to depart immediately, but Enlil had more to say.
But Earth is teeming with life, including intelligent creatures, though still early in their development. These creatures are bipedal like us, but smaller than us, perhaps half our height.
The creatures Enlil spoke of were under 6 feet tall. Anunnaki were between 12 and 15 feet tall. This is because Nibiru's gravity wasn't as strong as Earth's. This was just math. More gravity means smaller life forms. Low gravity allows plants and animals to grow very tall. Aside from their small size, the Earth creatures were similar in appearance to the Anunnaki in other ways. The Anunnaki had larger eyes and larger skulls than the Earthlings. But the Earth beings had 2 arms, 2 legs, eyes, nose, mouth, just like the Anunnaki. Anu sensed concern in Enlil's voice.
Do these Earth creatures pose a threat to us and our project?
They are primitive but violent. Some eat animal flesh, if you can imagine. They have no interest in gold, but they may perceive us as a threat. They have no technology beyond wood and stone. Still, in numbers, they could be dangerous.
That's what the Ajiji are for.
The Ajiji were a race of slaves who served the Anunnaki in all things, from operating factories to maintaining order. They were an intelligent and obedient workforce, and they could surely handle primitive creatures half their size. The council convened, the decision was made, and 300 Anunnaki and 600 Ajiji were loaded onto great ships. It was time to make the journey sunward. It was time to make the journey to Earth. After a brief stop on Mars, the Anunnaki fleet arrived in Earth's orbit. The crew was stunned. The planet was a vibrant blue and green with swirling white clouds. Vast glimmering oceans seemed to go on forever. The planet was full of life in the sky, on land, and the sea below.
Yeah, Anunnaki.
The Anunnaki marveled at Earth's beauty, but also felt sadness. Their home planet Nibiru was dying, and its people were suffering. But that sadness renewed their resolve. They were here for a purpose: mine all the gold needed to heal their atmosphere.
Yeah, Anunnaki.
A few ships remained in orbit, while others scouted the planet for a suitable landing site. Eventually, they settled on the lush green plains between the Euphrates and the Tigris rivers. Later, this area would become known as Mesopotamia, the Greek word for between 2 rivers. The ships landed, and the Ajiji were put to work. The Ajiji were a race of aliens that the Anunnaki conquered long ago. After the Ajiji were defeated, they were enslaved. They've served the Anunnaki ever since. The Ajiji look similar to the Anunnaki, who look similar to modern humans.
Yeah, there's a reason for that.
I'm getting there. Ajiji were between 12 and 15 feet tall and extremely strong. Where humans have somewhat round skulls, the Anunnaki and the Ajiji, to some degree, have very large and often elongated skulls. These elongated heads have been depicted many times in ancient carvings and frescoes. The Ajiji were given only 7 days to build the great city of Eridu, to be ruled by Anu's son, Enki. The Anunnaki were cruel and rude to the Ajiji.
The gods' load was great, the toil grievous, the trouble excessive. The great Anunnaki, the seven, were making the Ajiji undertake the toil.
The city was completed on time. Then the Ajiji dug mines and began mining gold. They mined gold day after day, year after year, for 150,000 years. The Ajiji extracted gold by the ton, and ships began making round trips between Earth and Nibiru. Enki, ruling in his father Anu's name, was thrilled. He demanded more output. The slave masters used weapons like particle beams to force the Ajiji to work harder and faster. Enki didn't want to abuse the workforce this way, but felt he had no choice. The atmosphere on Nibiru was all but stripped away. He wasn't sure the gold would get back home in time. Then, against his better judgment, Enki demanded even more output from the mines. The slave masters were told to use any means necessary to get this done, including torture. Soon, whispers of dissent circulated among the Ajiji. Then the whispers became shouts. No longer would the Ajiji allow themselves to be tortured, and no longer would they work the mines. Atrahasis, a famous leader of the Ajiji, made the decision to rebel.
For too long have we languished under the yoke of the Anunnaki.
This episode of the Y-Files is brought to you by Factor. During the 1960s and 70s, the United States and the Soviet Union fought the Cold War on many fronts. Some of these engagements were obvious, like the Cuban Missile Crisis and the proxy wars in Asia. Other conflicts. This episode of the Y-Files is brought to you by PDS Debt. In September 1989, Doug Muchler reported for duty.
With you from day one to help baby skin stay comfortable. EQ Dry.
Cambridge, Massachusetts. The Massachusetts Institute of Technology is home to some of the world's greatest minds. MIT researchers are on the forefront of innovation, including the development of wireless transmission of power. Efficient wireless transmission of electricity has eluded scientists for years. Radio waves, microwaves, and even laser beam transmission of power have fallen short. But in 2007, MIT researchers were able to safely transmit power wirelessly 7 feet across a room. A feat heralded as a first step to cutting the power cord. Incredibly, a world in which all electrical devices would be automatically powered at all times, requiring no charging or wires, was envisioned more than a century earlier by inventor Nikola Tesla. And by some accounts, he was close to actually achieving that goal.
The ideas of Tesla for wireless power have only been briefly investigated by various scientists. And the tests that were done by Tesla in 1899 to 1900 in Colorado Springs verified the fact that the use of wireless was actually possible.
Tesla went out to Colorado Springs to see if he could send electricity miles, which is a tremendous achievement. But he had a huge tower, and there was 200 feet to the top. His assistant was located at the laboratory, and Tesla said, when I give you the signal, I want you to throw the switch and fire up the wireless system. And Tesla probably walked 4 miles away.
Tesla inserted light bulbs into the earth to see if his tower was in fact creating a wireless circuit with the ground. If so, the bulbs would light up.
These light bulbs were being lit. So he was able to establish that he could transmit electrical power over great distances. But he did keep it a secret. He even kept the mechanics a secret from his assistant, who didn't totally know all the details of what he was doing.
Shoreham, New York, 1901. Tesla convinces banker J.P. Morgan to give him $150,000 for the construction of a radio station. But instead, he uses the money to build a giant wireless transmitter he calls Wardenclyffe Tower.
Wardenclyffe was 187 feet to the top, but it also went 120 feet down into the ground. And Tesla had envisioned receiving stations which would look just like the Wardenclyffe Tower at different nodal points around the Earth. So you would jump energy by means of wireless from station to station. He even thought that he could eventually use the same system to jump power to different planets.
But Tesla's dream of creating a highly efficient broadcast of wireless electricity was cut short when in 1904, its funder, J.P. Morgan, discovered Tesla's true intentions: to provide free power to everyone on the planet. With lack of additional funding, by 1908, the project was completely abandoned. And in 1917, the tower was demolished.
No company, no corporation wants to give away its technology freely. So Tesla was shut down so that the world wouldn't have free energy.
But just how was Tesla able to transmit electricity wirelessly for several miles when modern scientists can only manage 7 feet? Tesla credited his many inventions to the ability to realize mind. He also described experiencing intense flashes of light, which were followed by moments of intense creativity and clarity.
He would see an invention appear before his eyes in almost holographic detail. He said that he could rotate these visions, take them apart piece by piece, and he knew exactly how he was going to build these inventions based on his visionary experiences. One of his greatest creations is the rotating magnetic field, and that came in a flash of intuition. He felt that we were receivers, that all impulses came from the outside, and that we worked on these impulses. So he doesn't believe that they come from dreams or inner visions. He really felt that we were, in a sense, self-propelled robots.
Some ancient astronaut theorists believe there may be another explanation for Tesla's uncanny abilities and mysterious visions. They suggest these spontaneous episodes are proof that Tesla was receiving information from an otherworldly source.
These images would literally burst into his mind. Somehow, somewhere, some connection was made. And it's the same way the biblical prophets received their prophecy. Nikola Tesla was clearly in touch with something.
You have to wonder if extraterrestrials themselves weren't feeding him images of inventions that only he could understand.
Nikola Tesla felt there was a knowledge base located somewhere in the universe that all of humanity could tap into if they just knew how to properly tune their mind to this knowledge base.
Colorado Springs, July 1899. While testing a magnifying transmitter built to track storms, Nikola Tesla claims he received some sort of transmission from an unknown source.
One night he was tracking thunderstorms 600 miles away, but all of a sudden he heard these beeps. And it was 3 beats in sequence. And so it was mathematical, and it didn't make any sense to him. And the more he thought about it, He thought that they came from outer space, perhaps from the Martians.
Mars' orbit brings it close to the Earth periodically, about once every 1.8 years. And at one of those close encounters, he believed he was picking up signals from Mars.
He most likely had a radar receiver that was sensitive enough to receive radio waves, as we now know, come from galaxies and lots of different extraterrestrial sources. So he interpreted them as signals from ETs. But perhaps he had an open channel that we really still don't understand today.
Tesla believed it's absurd to think we're the only intelligent beings in the universe. If that's the case, where are they in the intelligence hierarchy? And why wouldn't they want to communicate with an intelligent force on the Earth?
Tesla reported this otherworldly communication and proclaimed his belief in extraterrestrials in February of 1901 in an article for Collier's Weekly titled Talking with the Planets. Tesla became obsessed with trying to receive further radio communications from other planets. Based on these transmissions that Tesla was receiving, he developed a theory that this extraterrestrial presence had been on Earth for a millennia, that these extraterrestrials had been controlling mankind from the very beginning.
How far did these communications go? Did it lead to the point where he was actually able to receive useful information that was helping him build his inventions? Many believe that this is what happened, and that Tesla had direct contact through the things he'd invented with extraterrestrial intelligence.
But the shocking revelation was shunned by Tesla's scientific peers and led many to deem him a mad scientist.
So you have Nikola Tesla electrifying the world, literally. Then, about the time that he had a falling out with J.P. Morgan, a very powerful man, he'd also had a legendary falling out with Edison, another legendary powerful man. Then it came out that he was trying to perhaps signal the planet Mars. And his enemies exploited this, I think, to try and discredit him.
Tesla talked about atoms working like solar systems, and that light could work as a wave and a particle. Einstein got a Nobel Prize for saying light worked like a particle. And Bohr and Rutherford got a Nobel Prize for saying that atoms were like little solar systems. So why is he removed from the history of quantum physics when he really belongs at the heart of it? So I think he's been unfairly treated by the physicists, and part of the reason is his attachment to extraterrestrials.
Was Nikola Tesla simply letting his imagination get the better of him? Or is it possible he really was in contact with extraterrestrial beings? Belgrade, Serbia. Housing more than 160,000 documents, the Nikola Tesla Museum offers rare insight into some of Tesla's future plans, including what some believe to be drawings of spaceships. According to historians, Tesla began work on his flying machine in 1910, focusing on the use of field propulsion or anti-gravity. It is believed Tesla had discovered that high amounts of electricity could actually create lift in an object.
Throughout the 1920s and 30s, Tesla continually talked about anti-gravity ships that could derive power from his Wardenclyffe towers that were going to be broadcasting power. He claimed that these ships did not have wings or fuel. They were completely electric.
But were Tesla's designs truly the first of their kind? Or is it possible, as ancient astronaut theorists suggest, that similar vehicles had already visited the planet in the remote past?
In the ancient Indian epics, the Vedas, we find references of vimanas, those flying chariots that were used by the gods in order to travel from point A to point B. Some of these vimanas were able to all took direction at the drop of a hat without any effort. So now reading this from a modern day perspective would suggest that some type of anti-gravity device was used. You could link this from the ancients to the modern world with the modern UFO phenomenon. And so the idea that Tesla might have worked on an anti-gravity device is very plausible to me.
Are the depictions of flying machines in ancient Hindu texts, like the Mahabharata, really proof that Tesla had received otherworldly knowledge in order to design anti-gravity spaceships? And if the so-called mad scientist actually did make contact with extraterrestrials, is it possible he continued to carry out their wishes in secret? The Singapore Air Show, February 2014. An Israeli arms company known as Rafael Advanced Defense Systems reveals details of a laser defense system capable of shooting missiles from the sky with a pulse of energy. The futuristic military hardware is called Iron Beam.
The concept of iron beam is that it's essentially a high energy laser that is designed to rapidly heat up the target that it's aimed at. We're talking about aircraft, drones, missiles, anything that could launch an attack on a city could be literally destroyed in the sky by iron beam. It sounds very much like Tesla's death ray.
This is exactly the kind of technology that Tesla was talking about in the 1920s and 30s, of using these beam weapons to shoot down missiles and projectiles.
The War Department sided with Einstein and Oppenheimer's atomic bomb, not with Tesla. But now what we're seeing is that Israel is developing this iron beam technology because they realized that atomic weapons were far too destructive. Is it possible that Tesla developed a time viewing or time travel technology and that he became aware of these developments?
Tesla was once quoted as saying, "The present is theirs, but the future for which I have really worked is mine." Did Tesla, in fact, see into the future? Might Iron Beam be proof that plans for the death ray not only existed, but also may have even been confiscated and carried out by the United States government? There are those who believe that Nikola Tesla was not only in contact with extraterrestrials, but was sent here to Earth by them to fulfill a mission and usher in a new age for mankind.
One of the big questions is, who is Tesla? Is he, in a sense, an avatar, an enlightened being that comes to the Earth to help humans? No one really knows exactly what's going on, but I think all great artists, and Tesla saw himself as an artist, feel that they're instruments of a higher purpose, and Tesla certainly felt that he was working along those lines.
There is an agenda for humanity. There is a plan. And in every generation, whatever power it is that's behind the plan sends to Earth certain specific souls who are by birth more inclined and able to be receptors to the higher knowledge.
You have to wonder if Tesla was transplanted to Earth by extraterrestrials in order to envision and invent all of these amazing devices.
If extraterrestrials put Tesla in place for a specific purpose, did they accomplish what they hoped to achieve? The answer may be no, because if Tesla's technologies had been openly acknowledged here on Earth, we could have greened the deserts, we could be desalinating ocean water with tabletop energy levels, we could have a totally new and different world in which we don't have to pay for energy, which we have anti-gravity craft, in which we have teleportation technology, and in which we truly have become a golden age here on Earth. That has not happened.
August 1946. Esteemed U.S. naval officer and explorer Admiral Richard Byrd, one of the first pilots to fly over both the North and South Poles, organizes Operation High Jump, the largest expedition ever to travel to Antarctica. With 13 ships, 23 aircraft, and over 4,700 military personnel.
This was very important, that after the conclusion of World War II, Admiral Byrd was asked if he would mount a large armada and go for 4 months. It was supposed to be that they would go in December, January, February, and March, and there was a list of military goals that they were to achieve, but by the end of February, something happened.
One of the mission's official goals was investigating sites for potential military bases in Antarctica. But during his explorations, Admiral Byrd allegedly came upon something highly unexpected.
This story is said to come from his diaries, not his published account of the trip, but something he held back and then later was suppressed by government authorities that found it frightening.
In his diary, which was discovered by his son after his death, Admiral Byrd tells an extraordinary story.
Admiral Byrd heard there was an entrance to the center of the Earth through the South Pole. And he took planes into the South, under the South Pole. And when he did that, he discovered that as he flew over the pole, suddenly he's looking at things that shouldn't be there. I mean, it was temperate. His squadron flew under the Earth, into the Earth.
It turns into this lush and green area, and he can't even believe his eyes. But that's just the beginning of his extraordinary story. He tells how all of a sudden he starts to see a shimmering rainbow city that's made of crystal. His airplane is taken control of when he suddenly sees these flying disc-shaped objects around him that lead him to the ground. Whereupon he's escorted into a cavernous type of an area where he meets a being he refers to as the Master in his diary. The Master tells him that they're highly disappointed in what humans are doing with nuclear weapons and how they recently destroyed Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And they really are concerned about what is going on the surface of the planet. They tell Admiral Byrd that they hope that humanity will ultimately stop this.
For UFO researchers, this account from Admiral Byrd's diary is particularly significant due to the fact that the modern UFO era began right after World War II and the detonation of the first atomic bombs. It has also been noted that a high number of UFO sightings have been reported in the vicinity of nuclear missile silos.
Admiral Byrd's story is congruent with the stories that we hear from numerous accounts of angelic or extraterrestrial type beings that are very concerned about what humanity is doing with nuclear weapons. Just ask the Air Force officers at the U.S. missile silos, the nuclear missile silos, that have seen their silos and their nuclear arms disarmed by what are perceived to be extraterrestrial beings. They're very concerned that we are ultimately not just going to destroy ourselves, but could harm our planet, which is their world as well.
If Admiral Byrd's secret diary is authentic, does it reveal not only that there are highly advanced beings living inside the Earth, but also that they are monitoring what happens on the surface? According to the diary, After this incredible encounter, Admiral Byrd was eager to share his story, but was ordered to remain silent.
Byrd comes back after this experience. He is taken to a government compound where he is told that he is never to speak of this publicly and that everything he says is classified.
Could Admiral Byrd's story point to a profound connection between the ancient traditions of strange beings living inside the Earth and the modern-day UFO phenomenon? Ancient astronaut theorists say yes, and believe we may be fast approaching the time when we will find ourselves face to face with the beings of inner Earth. Antarctica is a land of extremes. Nearly 98% of the ground is covered by an ice sheet up to 3 miles thick. A mountain as towering as Japan's Mount Fuji at 12,400 feet would not even break the surface. Temperatures regularly fall below minus 50 degrees Fahrenheit, with winds of up to 200 miles an hour. During its peak season, it is home to only 4,000 scientists and military personnel.
Antarctica is the last frontier. It holds our imagination. Old maps that said, "Here be monsters." The last remaining territory on the planet that could have such a designation is Antarctica.
Although it was discovered nearly 250 years ago, scientists have more questions than answers when it comes to this frozen continent. Due to the sheer depth of the ice covering its landmass, the surface of Antarctica is unable to be seen with the naked eye. And ancient astronaut theorists propose that it is not just the geology that is hidden from us. They suggest there is far more human and perhaps non-human activity happening in Antarctica than we've been told.
Something seems to be going on this mysterious continent at the South Pole. And it has been theorized by a number of people that Antarctica is some kind of alien base.
Rumors of extraterrestrial activity in Antarctica have circulated for years. If these accounts are true, and there is, in fact, an extraterrestrial presence in Antarctica today, could it have been there for hundreds or even thousands of years? In July 2018, Linda Moulton Howe interviewed a whistleblower who offered to provide her with classified information regarding Antarctica on the condition that she not reveal his identity. Her source, a retired Navy SEAL, who she identifies as Spartan 1, provided her with details of an ancient structure he claims to have visited during his time at the South Pole.
At that time, my rank was First Lieutenant Commander, Naval Special Operations. We were inbound the southeast coast of Antarctica. We were dispatched for, unofficially, was a research reconnaissance mission. Officially, it was to find a certain individual, obtain any information, and bring it back.
What was the date?
August 2003.
According to Spartan 1, when he and his team reached their destination, they encountered a large octagonal structure protruding from the ice. Cautiously, they proceeded to enter it.
At the very top of the first structure that we entered, there was almost 18 feet poking from the ice. The rest of it was hidden under the ice. Each door was the same, anywhere from 18 feet thick to around 30 feet thick. And even though these doors were that thick and that heavy, you could take one finger and push them and they would open. There was no resistance whatsoever. The outside temperature was at least 40 degrees below zero. Once you stepped inside these structures, the temperature was an ambient 68 to 72 degrees.
What about the ceilings, hallways, floors?
It was lighted from the inside, but we could not find the source of light. It was a lime green in color. The walls were lined
with what I call hieroglyphics. Nothing of hieroglyphics that I've ever seen in my life.
Could there really be mysterious structures buried at the South Pole? Structures built by an advanced extraterrestrial civilization in our remote past.
Buried underneath the ice in Antarctica could well be stone temple constructions. There could be biological material, remains of beings that lived there and could still be there. It could be the greatest reveal in all of human history.
The Bible's book of Genesis. In chapter 6, verse 9, begins the story of Noah and the flood, in which God sends a great deluge to rid the earth of sinners and start anew. Different versions of this same story exist in nearly every ancient tradition around the world.
Going back 5,000 years, we have sacred texts that tell us there was an antediluvian civilization. There was a great flood and that there were survivors. The Mesopotamians speak of this in the Epic of Gilgamesh. The Egyptians speak of this in the the creation text. Plato learned from the Egyptians that there was once a civilization called Atlantis that existed 9,000 years before his time.
Plato wrote about the lost continent of Atlantis in two of his dialogues, Timaeus and Critias, around 360 BC. Historians and researchers have long debated whether this pre-flood civilization was purely mythological or actually existed. Arguments have been made suggesting remnants of Plato's destroyed civilization could be found at the South Pole.
I think what happened in Antarctica was that approximately 13,000 years ago, that flourishing civilization that originally came from space and establishing its presence in Antarctica was flash frozen. We actually have ancient evidence of this in the form of Plato's dialogues, where he talks about the last days of Atlantis. That basically is informing us that Atlantis was an extraterrestrial colony that had established itself on Earth, and that after a pole shift, Atlantis was moved under the ice where the South Pole currently is.
Scientific anomalies, radar and satellite images, eyewitness accounts. As more and more pieces of the puzzle start to come together, might we soon be able to solve the mystery of the Antarctic continent? And if so, just what might we discover?
Modern whistleblowers still argue that there is more about Antarctica that is being covered up than we think. There are entire bases down there, entire civilizations that the world's governments are working with aliens. They know about the buried artifacts, they know about the ancient civilizations down there, and they know about the extraterrestrial civilizations that continue to operate in Antarctica at the very moment.
It's totally possible that Antarctica contains an extraterrestrial home base on Earth. It's a totally isolated part of the planet. It's completely uninhabited, or was until recently. It's ideal.
August 26, 1946. A U.S. scientific expedition called Operation High Jump departs for the South Pole. It is led by esteemed naval officer and explorer, Admiral Richard Byrd.
Admiral Richard Byrd was a very important admiral in the United States Navy. He graduated the United States Naval Academy at Annapolis. He fought in World War I, and after the war, he became an explorer.
In 1926, Byrd made worldwide headlines when he and Navy Chief Aviation Pilot Floyd Bennett became the first people to ever fly over the North Pole. For their efforts, both men received the Congressional Medal of Honor. Later, when Byrd, at the age of 41, made the first solo flight over the South Pole. He became the youngest person ever promoted to the rank of admiral in the history of the United States Navy. In 1946, Byrd oversaw Operation High Jump, the largest Antarctic expedition to date. The massive military convoy included 13 ships, 33 aircraft, and 4,700 troops.
The U.S. Navy sent down a flotilla of ships under command of Admiral Byrd, and they came back after about 9 months in Antarctica. Apparently, they actually fought a battle in Antarctica, probably between remnants of the Third Reich and perhaps extraterrestrials as well. There were stories of craft coming up out of the water and attacking them.
Flying Saucer dealt a very heavy defeat to Byrd's Operation High Jump. He gave a report in March of 1947 that said a new enemy had been discovered that could fly from pole to pole in an instant.
In 2018, more than 70 years after Byrd's astounding claim, a satellite image captured what appeared to be a condensed water trail from an aircraft, or contrail, that could only have been produced by something traveling at incredibly high speeds.
It extended the entire length of the Earth longitudinally from the North Pole to the South Pole, which is 12,000 miles.
The maximum length of time that a contrail can maintain its shape is 30 minutes, but most dissipate in less than 15. Only a craft capable of traveling faster than 50,000 miles per hour, or 10 times the speed of the fastest aircraft in existence today, could leave a contrail that would stretch the entire length of the Earth without breaking up.
It's a seeming impossibility because it meant that some object was able to traverse the entire planet from pole to pole in a matter of minutes before the contrail disappeared.
Whatever created that was going beyond Mach 10. Mach 10 is over 78,000 miles per hour. This was probably going much, much faster than that. So whatever it was something that more than likely we've never seen before.
In the 21st century, satellite photography has allowed anyone with an internet connection to access images of Antarctica. In 2016, a striking image was discovered of a seemingly man-made entrance carved into an Antarctic mountain range.
This is a legitimate satellite image of a very large, proportionate hole in the ground or the mountain range. This looks intelligently designed to suit a specific craft that flies through this particular opening.
Similarly, in 2018, internet researchers released the coordinates for what they describe as a UFO crash-landed on the Antarctic island of South Georgia.
The photographs are really compelling because this is not somebody making believe something is there. You can actually see the skid marks. It actually looks as though an object is moving along that ice. But the thing that so intrigued people looking at those images were that the skid marks were straight.
Some ancient astronaut theorists have noted that the shape of the alleged craft is very similar to a mysterious celestial object that was detected entering our solar system in October 2017. Called Oumuamua, the object was initially identified as an asteroid, but its shape, trajectory, and acceleration were so unexpected that the chair of Harvard's astronomy department, Avi Loeb, suggested that Oumuamua might be an alien probe.
It's a very curious image of this large, oblong, tubular-shaped craft that seems to have crashed into the ice and then skidded along. And it really looks like this interstellar asteroid, Oumuamua, that could easily be a spacecraft
The actual craft itself is right around 50 yards in length. This is the wider view of this object that quite possibly came in at an angle, ricocheted off of the base of this mountain, and that's what gave it the momentum to skid several thousands of feet. You can definitely see the mountain. There's some disturbance here where this track leads back to from this identified object. This very well could be a crash landing based off of what we're seeing at the bottom of the mountain, yeah.
Is it possible that online researchers using satellite technology actually located the crash remnants of an extraterrestrial vehicle and the opening to an underground alien base?
There's been a lot of talk about underground bases in Antarctica, and certain satellite photos show mountain areas that have unusual caverns in them, literal windows that are the shape of a flying saucer.
Is it possible that secret, perhaps extraterrestrial bases are hidden beneath the ice on Antarctica?
Conventional wisdom suggests that the Earth is essentially a solid spherical mass with an inner core of solid iron encased in a layer of molten iron, followed by stiffer mantle and the crust before heading to the surface on which we all live. However, although this theory is almost universally accepted as absolute fact, it is only an educated guess, with no solid proof to back it up. The fact is that we have never been anywhere near to the center of the Earth. So with that in mind, theories that state the Earth is in fact hollow and even able to support life should be treated the same way as the widely accepted aforementioned theory. As you might suspect, though, most scoff at this notion and dismiss it entirely.
They were beings of light, shining ones, watchers. They were both good and bad, mirroring humanity. They gave great knowledge, and after tens of thousands of years, mankind suddenly had the ability to create civilization. We built huge monuments in their name, and we recorded our contact with them in fables, myths, legends, folklore, and religion. We even created grand myths, such as Atlantis, to explain it. They were our gods, and we worshipped them and recorded their powers, deeds, and lives. These gods of the world were in fact not real gods, whatever that means. They were in fact alien invaders, and we were the subjects of their rule. This is the true story of the aliens in the ancient world. Over 5,000 years before Christ, an amazing thing happened that would change the course of human history. Hidden from us by misunderstanding, mistranslation, and clouded in mythology, the birth of religion on this planet was no mere accident. It was the result of an alien invasion on a vast scale, and it sparked the worship of the ancient aliens as gods. Those gods are the oldest recorded figures of worship anywhere in history. They are the root of all the major world religions. They gave rise to the great powers of Egypt, Mesopotamia, and more. They gave rise to the fable of Atlantis, a superior race who ruled over mankind with superior intellect and technology. Those people with knowledge of this created secret societies to keep the history alive. We know them today as the Illuminati. They spread outwards around the world and were the genesis of a special holy bloodline that remains with us today. One of their descendants would be caught, beaten, and crucified. And yet, he would rise from his grave, unrecognizable and accompanied by messengers of light. He would ascend in the sky, having cast off his shrouded skin. His bloodline would give rise to the royal families of the entire world. His bloodline would be protected, defended, and would control the globe. He was a descendant of the great serpent elite, who came to this earth as beings of light to create, control, and teach mankind. He was a descendant of the great giant killer, David, a memory of a great battle that was fought between the serpent elite and the sons of Alien and Man. All of this is actually written in the historical records. They were known as giants in the land. The aliens escaped Earth, but left behind their seed and tools of power and communication. It is prophesied that they shall return, and the signs are growing daily that they have returned and are right now dealing with their own elite bloodline, the men in power. Original worship on this planet is that of the serpent. That is historical fact. And yet it is within every single religion. It is in all the myths of the world. And they all tell the same story. In the beginning, the serpent was the wise one, the only animal in the Bible to speak freely with his own mind and voice. The tempter, and yet also the holder of ultimate wisdom and the elixir of life. Mankind, in comparison to this remarkable animal, appeared foolish. From that day forward, the serpent would control man. That serpent was quite possibly a reptilian alien holding the technological power to modify and seed humanity and the wisdom of another civilization. The very genetic makeup of mankind would have been altered from this moment. We cannot say exactly when. We cannot pinpoint the so-called Garden of Eden in time. But we can piece together the remarkable story of the serpent aliens who came from the skies. We can uncover the story of what happened next and how it has affected our own reality. It is said that the aliens do walk among us right now. To many, the very idea that the serpent is hidden within our religions and mythology will seem bizarre. In Christianity and other faiths, it is reviled, and this itself is a folk memory of a fearful and warring past between mankind and the serpent aliens. Nevertheless, the historical truth is that the serpent is there at the root of all major religions. This has been proven again and again, both from scriptures and archaeology. Over thousands of years and across hundreds of cultures, the history of this ancient invasion by the great shining ones from the heavens altered and became legend and myth. Much of it turned into the great religions of the planet. But hidden in these stories is the real, literal truth of an invasion of planet Earth by beings so strange that we called them serpents. Ancient man left carvings, renderings, and cave paintings with tales of their coming across the world. The great guardians of the Shining Ones, known as the Watchers, mated with human females, and a hybrid bloodline was born. It became the bloodline of the rulers of our globe and was protected and kept secret. In truth, this was the period of the ancient invasion of planet Earth by the shining beings who came from the sky. Our ancestors worshipped them for their amazing power. But now, in our modern scientific age, we can now see things more clearly. These were not angels or messengers of light. These were not great Greek deities sat on high and issuing commands. They were not the many-faced Hindu or Egyptian gods. These were beings from another planet or dimension who came here with superior technology. They created mankind as the Egyptian Book of the Dead states. I am the Lord of the Red Crown, which is on the head of the Shining One. He who gives life to mankind from the heat of his mouth.
Ay, thank you muna, thank you. Bye-bye, thank you very much. Bear, thank you very much.
They bred with us, and they fought with each other over